Okay, so it seems like recently there's been a little bit of a situation going on from the offshoots of the Sykkuno situation. Now, obviously, if you don't know, the Sykkuno situation has been a huge one that's been blowing up over on Twitter lately, and there's been many people coming out with their own kind of stories and like I guess, interactions with him, which have been ranging from bad to not bad and just a casual interaction, but obviously it starts to make sense, the fact that they're a VTuber, or they already post online themselves online on Twitter and stuff like that. Of course it tends to add up for some people, but obviously there's one VTuber, obviously Powdur, who made a post on it, which we actually covered in a previous video, saying, ladies, you're not special, we're all special, and obviously put a screenshot of a DM that she had with Sykunno, where essentially they called for 3 hours, and she says here, we just played a game, don't get any funny ideas, and she put the context lol and put Mujin's video. Now, of course, this has now gotten even crazier, as recently Powdur put out a like a follow-up, I guess, post behind this, talking about it, saying, can you criticize him for cheating? Absolutely, but never once did I feel manipulated by this dude. He's a huge flirt, but I was incredibly aware of his power dynamic. Also, he was just friendly. He's quite forward with his riz, which I didn't like being around, gave me player vibes. Am I going to flip out at him? No. Usually when someone is like that, they're already talking to multiple people, which, yeah, I think is fair enough, right? I think this first paragraph is fine. A lot of people are very mentally, strong. They don't get, like fooled easily by people that like to flirt with a lot of people, like to, kind of go around and, try to get with a lot of people, which of course, as I said, everyone's different in their ways to kind of be able to detect that, and their kind of, I guess, social awareness whenever it comes to those kind of situations. Obviously, Powdur is one that can kind of, identify that pretty quickly. And of course, yeah, she says she feels is she going to flip out at him? No. But obviously she said that she doesn't really like people that are quite forward with that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's usually, it's pretty obvious that they're talking to multiple people. And there are people out there that are like that, right? I've known people that are like that are like, damn, yeah, you are definitely talking to a lot of people. You don't want to go anywhere near that, right? And of course, that's fine. Also, some people were like, yeah, sure, I'll go for that, which, again, that sometimes it happens too. But yeah, obviously they continue on saying, I see some women trying to play the victim as if they didn't have a brain in the situation. Also saw people throwing around the word predator. I think it's unreasonable. Mujin never was really a reliable narrator. If a larger creator who is friendly asks you to play a game with you, would you say no? And obviously, yeah, I think this is one of these kind of situations now where a lot of people have been discussing, was he preying on people? Was he being a quote-unquote predator towards these VTubers and smaller creators, right? By obviously getting in the DMs, kind of doing whatever. Obviously, as we saw with the hemomalvt kind of Google Doc, kind of flirting with her pretty heavily, selling her money, talking about moving in and all of this kind of stuff. And as well as him, doing it to multiple people as well. I think obviously some people are wondering, is this kind of predatory behavior or not? Because obviously predator can be a term that can be kind of misconstrued sometimes. A lot of people think, obviously predator, they associate it with PDFs, because of course, there are, child predators are known as them, right? But there's also other kind of predators as well, which, prey on people that are, obviously smaller than them, which obviously is what they're trying to claim, at least, right? And again, it has been very heavily debated whether that is the case or not, and you can, agree or disagree whether that is the case or not with this one, because of course, obviously his target was people that were, smaller than him, and or like creators that were smaller than him, and would be infatuated with the fact that, a bigger streamer wants to play a game with me, a bigger streamer wants to talk to me, etc. And obviously that would be used to then, obviously get with them or whatever that he wanted to do, right? Now, of course, some people wouldn't have a problem with that, but, obviously some people are also talk about the cheating on top of that and all of this stuff as well. And obviously, yeah, Powdur puts the last question there saying, if a larger creator who is friendly asked to play a game with you, would you say no? And 9 times out of 10, people, yeah, they wouldn't say no, right? And obviously she talks about the fact that, I see some women trying to say that they, play the victim as if they didn't have a brain in the situation. And I do think that's true, right? Obviously, there's plenty of women out there who know what they were doing. And we actually see that pretty evidently through a lot of the messages that more people come out with Sykkuno. There's been many tweets that have come out of people saying that he messaged them once, maybe they talked a little bit, and then they felt weirded out, or they felt like something wasn't right, or like, you know, he was being a bit overly flirty, and then they left the conversation, right? That was also a case. So there are plenty of people out there who obviously used their brains, went, okay, there's something weird going on here, and left that thing. But obviously, some people don't. And I think that is just down to, you know, a personal thing. I think sometimes people can get a little bit carried away, and sometimes, you know, yeah, they can get too heavily infatuated with, you know, people. And that's why we saw Himamo in the last clip, in the last video of her saying, like, you know, oh, she believes in second chances and stuff after obviously cheating on his girlfriend and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah, sometimes it is one of those things where, you know, she's been incredibly attached to him for a while. But again, you know, you can agree, disagree, or whatever with this statement. But essentially, Mujin had responded to this one, essentially saying, can you criticize him for cheating? Absolutely, but I had no views whatsoever and became desperate after trying everything to become relevant, so I chose to appeal to people who hate my gender in order to pay rent. Now, obviously, he's referring to Powdur here, which I think is pretty crazy, because this is a pretty crazy crash out. I'm going to be real. You know, this is one of these things where it's like, whoa, you know, calm down a little bit. Like, I don't know if we need to go this far. I'm saying, I had no, sorry, I'm going to flip on a serial cheater who had sex with women without telling them that they'd be homewreckers. Of course not. Morals are not an obstacle to my income. Mujin was never really a reliable narrator, so when his video eventually comes out about me being cancelled by my audience for secretly having dated a black guy, even though I keep saying that I can't stand minorities, please don't trust him. Also, English is my first language, and I have no idea that predator can mean a person or organization that uses weaker people for their own advantage. But it's okay, my audience gobbles up anything I say anyways, dumbass simps lamau. So again, obviously, that is what he had to say in response to Powdur. Bro's mad. Like, bro is mad. And again, I think maybe it's a little bit of an unwarranted crash out. I mean, of course, you can disagree with Powdur. You know, I think that's fine. But, you know, I think this is a bit far, right? Saying, like, things like, oh, you know, he's going to come out that secretly she dated a black guy or whatever. Like, like, bro, like, seriously. Let's be real here. But again, obviously, it's got 600,000 views, and yeah, a lot of people aren't really liking this one. I'm gonna be honest. You know, Mujin is usually pretty well liked, especially whenever it comes to the original video that he made on the whole situation, right? Obviously, that all came out here, right? This was pretty well received, 14k. I mean, yeah, I'd say it's okay received. 14k, 3.9 million views. But again, this one, people didn't think he kind of, you know, he hit the mark on this one. But essentially, Powdur responded saying, damn, you're like really bad, lol. Obviously ratioing the tweet quite heavily, saying, also, stop fetishizing me in a mixed race relationship, you fuck, what gross behavior. Which obviously, yeah, I mean, that's fair enough, right? I do think it's a little bit weird to start speculating about people's relationships and who they're in a relationship with. Which again, I mean, bro, I just don't think this crash out really needed to happen, right? I just don't think it really needed to, you know, I don't think this really needed to be said, right? Obviously, Deme said, oh my god, Mujin, take a step back. What she said wasn't even unreasonable or a personal attack. You rage baited yourself in this one. It's fair IMO to criticize the usage of dangerous predator in the post. You should know better as well. You know what it's trying to imply, which again, of course, yeah, I think that's fair enough, right? I think it is fair enough that, you know, there is this kind of, I guess, stigma behind the word of like predator and all this kind of stuff that, you know, many people will think it's way worse you know, than the actual meaning that they're trying to give off here. But of course, you know, some people are arguing potentially, you know, that was the effect that they were trying to give off, which again, I think, you know, could be true, right? So again, many people debating obviously that word, and obviously Deme, yeah, saying like it's a fair enough criticism, right? And I do think it is a fair enough criticism, right? Saying you're taking this unbiased reporting a bit too personally, aren't you? Again, 100% true. Saying the amount of buzzwords in this puke tweet, a puke of a tweet, just to describe what it comes down to, is the simple word cheater is hilarious. W. Powdur say a woman didn't step in line, better drop the SIM card, which of course, yeah, 100% true. So what said, if you were a woman, I'd tell you to change your tampon, Jesus Christ. But since you're a man, I'll tell you to wash the taste of blank. out of your mouth instead. It's making you sound like a moron. It said, I had no viewers whatsoever and became desperate after trying everything to be relevant. You just tried to shit on another creator by colluding with one of the worst Google Docs ever created, and you did this because you wanted to have the exclusive for views. What did this girl promise you that you seem to be willing to ruin your reputation for her? All of these spurgouts, is that how you say it? Spurgouts, really make you look like a condescending, I can't say that word. People said, you have super AIDS, give up Lil Maro. That they beat your ass in the quote retweets. And yeah, it seems like, yeah, people are not happy with this response that Mujin has given. And I think that's fair enough, right? I think he did crash out pretty, heavily. You got like Legal Mindset here saying, I used to perceive Mujin as a professional, but he's lost that in his handling of the Sykkuno situation. Sykkuno situation. Now downplaying the seriousness of labeling someone a predator by presenting the mild definition is hard cope. Everyone knows the real implication behind it. So this is amazing. Mujin, who openly admitted to coordinating a hit piece on a crazy BPD girl who still wants to sleep with the predator instead of him. Again, I don't know if she's BPD. Maybe, again, I haven't done any research on this. Maybe they are. But again, I don't know. And obviously, they can't wait for the Mujin doctor drop. Lamau, dear period crimes, leave her alone. Sorry you had to see that, ladies. I just get so passionate about feminism. So yeah, obviously a lot of people been making fun of him and all of this kind of stuff, and I do think it is a pretty crazy response to have to this, especially whenever I think she was correcting quite a bit of that tweet there, right? So yeah, I mean, people are not happy with him, and of course a lot of people have been also bringing up his like unbiased nature in regards to the fact that he obviously coordinated a video to be made on this, right? This was known before, all of this came out, because of course Mujin released a video very shortly after the actual doc came out, the tweet came out, which means obviously he's been working on it in the background. Obviously, he is friends with the person who made it apparently as well. So obviously there was some kind of coordination behind the scenes to get a video out about all of this kind of stuff, which I think is fair enough. But I think with Mujin's style, right, I just don't think it really makes sense, right? With Mujin's style of video, his usual style of video is big thing drops, and me and other people cover it, right? Whenever, as soon as it drops, and then Mujin waits it out for like a month maybe, and then obviously covers it later on whenever you have the full picture, because of course there's always things that come out. If, for example, he's going to miss out on a lot of things here, including potentially a Sykkuno response, as well as a kind of what you call it, I don't know what you call it, like the accounts of other people, right? The accounts of people that have had interactions with them. He's missing those out because they don't come until after he uploads his video, or after that kind of tweet comes out. So again, I think it is a little bit weird, because usually his style of video is kind of get the whole situation into one, and that's what gives him the unbiased kind of nature, right? Because of course he gets the kind of everything involved. With me, for example, I cover the thing that drops, and then maybe like the next day someone releases a response, and then we cover that the next day, right? Whereas him, he includes everything into one video, which of course makes it seem a lot more, I guess, well-rounded, because of course you have both sides of the argument there for people to make a kind of opinion on, which obviously isn't the case in this situation. Now, of course, Sykkuno hasn't responded yet, but as I said, usually Mujin is one to wait, maybe a month or so, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, and then obviously make the video once all of the kind of information is out there. But again, there's a lot of information that hasn't been covered in that, which is just like against his usual style of video, which sometimes I find a little bit odd. But again, obviously maybe he's just trying to do something to do with his content. I'm not sure, but all I can say though is people are not happy at all with this one tweet and response to Powdur. But yeah, essentially that is all I got for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go to GameSubs, use my code Kazo, get 10% off. Again, they've got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.